Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you had a really great day trading today. So today was Thursday, December 12th, and we did have PPI in pre-market, and those numbers came in red hot. And we did hit a lot of our targets to the downside today. We did open SPY with a small gap down to the 35 EMA, and we did trade right around that level for the first part of the day, and then we dropped into the CPI gap from the day before. The bottom of the implied move in SPY was 604. We closed just a little bit above that at 604.33. And in SPX, we also opened with a small gap down, and we took it to the 35 EMA, and you could see that initial move here. We dropped down here with the wick to the top of that CPI gap, back up to the 35 EMA. We traded sideways along that but lost it and then dropped. So we took it just outside the bottom of the implied move, back into the CPI gap, filled this gap from CPI about 1/3 of the way, and closed just outside of the implied move. So bottom of the implied move was 60.55. We closed at 60.51.25. SPY did close down 0.52%, SPX 0.54% down, VIX up 2.51%, and SPY did close within the implied move. SPX closed just a little bit outside of it. And then taking a look at QQQ, here we did also open with a gap down, and we took it to the 35 EMA. And most of the day we stayed above the 35 EMA in the red, but we did close underneath that level in that very last candle. 526 was the bottom of the implied move, and we closed at 526.50. So for tomorrow, it'll be funny. We'll be above the CPI up gap and below the PPI down gap, and of course underneath the 35 EMA. QQQ closed down 0.65%. VXN closed up 3.02%, and we did close within the implied move here. So we did have an inside day here in QQQ after yesterday's big up move. And then IWM, we did open here with a gap down as well, and we did pop up and we filled most of the gap. A little bit was left open, and then after that we dropped. We took it all the way down to the bottom of the implied move, actually just a little bit outside of it. The bottom of the implied move was 235. We closed 234.68, and you could see right here after we bounced on the election gap right here, we got back above this 35 EMA, and this was where we made those new all-time highs after 3 years, and then we dropped it back to the 35 EMA, and the 35 EMA consolidated back to the 30-minute 200 moving average. And then today, clearly, we dropped from that level. So you could see it was trying to catch right here, and we crossed under, and we took it down underneath the 1 hour 200 moving average down to the bottom of the implied move. And IWM did have the biggest down day today, down 1.3%, and RVX came up only a little bit, 0.8%, and we did not close within the implied move. We did close just a little bit underneath it. All right, and then that takes us lastly to DIA. DIA has seen a pretty steady downswing this week, and yesterday we did close with this 35 EMA right here on top of the 30-minute 200 moving average. And today that level did come down underneath. We did officially go bearish in DIA, and then from there we took it all the way down to the 1 hour 200 moving average. So really big down week for DIA. This is significant. I really would love to see if we bounce on this 1 hour 200 moving average and bring it back into the implied move. 442 is the bottom of the implied move on the week. And tomorrow is Friday, so it's the only day that DIA has a 0 DTE contract. So that could be a possible fun play to close the week. So DIA did close down 0.51%. And as of right now, we are not within the implied move for the week. But look at that momentum here. I cannot wait to see how this plays out. That is a really unique setup. All right, that is enough about today. Let's go check out tomorrow's levels. All right, guys, last day of the week. It is Friday, and before we get into today's trading ranges, if you find these videos useful, if they help you to choose better strikes and take better trades, and you love how I break it down every day, then please make sure to give this video a like. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Leave me a comment if you have any questions. And if you want to help support my channel, if you want to buy me a cup of coffee, the thank you button underneath the videos is an easy way to show appreciation. And it does help me to be able to bring you more and unique content. All right, so today in SPY, the implied move is between 601 and 608, and that is from options. 30-day average volatility 599 to 610 and 600 to 609 on Monday's contract. And we have an interesting setup today. We have the 35 EMA above us. We are in pre-market currently above that. So we're up here at the top of the implied move, and we do have this down gap here. So a level of resistance right on top of that 608 and then 609 on Monday's contract. And then within today's trading range, we do have all-time highs, which we did make last Friday. Underneath us, we do have the rest of this CPI gap. That was from Wednesday. And then the bottom of that gap is at 602.77. And the bottom of that gap is at 603. Underneath that, we do have the 30-minute 200 moving average. 601 is the bottom of the implied move for today. 600 on Monday's contract. So today's chart definitely looks like a bunch of mixed signals. And keep an eye on that 35 EMA as we start the day. All right, SPX, the implied move over here today is between 60.20 and 60.85, and that is from options. 30-day average volatility 6,000 to 6,100, 60.10 to 60.95 on Monday's contract. And above us, we do have the 35 EMA, and futures right now are above that, so we should open near the top of that. We still have another hour to go, but as it stands right now, we are up here in futures. So 60.85, and we have the down gap from yesterday. So this is the PPI down gap that goes right on top of it. That gap is right on top of the implied move, and then the top of the implied move on Monday's contract, 60.90, and 6,100 is the top of the 30-day average volatility. That lines right up with previous all-time highs that we did make last Friday. Underneath us, this is the CPI up gap from Wednesday with the 30-minute 200 moving average. Bottom of that gap is at 60.35. 60.20 is the bottom of the implied move. 60.10 on Monday's contract. And I'm not going to lie, I'm looking at 60.85, 60.95. Bear call spreads at open. Maybe take it one strike out. 60.90, 60.95. And then QQQ, the implied move on the day here is between 522 and 531. That is from options. 30-day average volatility is between 519 and 534. And on Monday's contract, 521 to 532. And to the upside, we do have the 35 EMA. Now, futures are up quite a bit in the Nasdaq, up 0.86%. So that does actually take us above the top of the implied move. So we'll get to that in just a second, that level, but 35 EMA right here. Then we have this down gap from PPI, from those hot PPI numbers. And above that, we do have the previous all-time highs that we made on Wednesday when we had that big squeeze after CPI. So that's right there at the top of the implied move, 631. And pre-market is 631.37 currently. So above previous all-time highs, above the PPI down gap. Now just remember, what tends to happen when we gap over the implied move is that we tend to push up. So if we open at this level above the top of the implied move, and we still have an hour, so we could definitely come back in before market opens, but if we do start over here, that would force shorts to cover, and then that usually does create a squeeze up. It's a move that drives me absolutely crazy if I'm not set up for it. So just be aware of that. And then 531 is the top of the implied move, 532 on Monday's contract. Underneath us, we do have this up gap from CPI, and then 522 is the bottom of the implied move, which is within that gap, and then 521, which is near the bottom of the gap, is the bottom of the implied move on Monday's contract. Then the bottom of the gap, 520, 30-minute 200 moving average, and then we also have another up gap. So quite a lot of buy levels at the bottom of QQQ's trading range today. Getting underneath this could be difficult if we start up. And IWM, the implied move for IWM is between 232 and 237, and that is from options, and the 30-day average volatility 230 to 239, and on Monday's contract 231 to 239. Now, small cap futures are flat right now, so we are right about where we closed, and to the upside, we do have the 1 hour 200 moving average and the 35 EMA on the 30-minute time frame. We do also have this 30-minute 200 moving average, which is still pointing up. We might see that start to curl down today a little bit or flatten out. And we also have this down gap right here. This is the PPI down gap. So 237 is the top of the implied move, 239 on Monday's contract. So that's $2 wide here. And right in between those two strikes, we do have this down gap. So interesting upper part of the trading range. There's a bit of resistance in the way. And then to the downside, we do have nothing but the bottom of the implied move, which is 232. Let's zoom out just a little bit. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of support right here. The next level of support is going to be at the bottom of the implied move on Monday's contract, which is 231. And that takes us to this up gap right before we did this rally to make new all-time highs. And that was after we bounced on the 1 hour 200 moving average within the election gap. So this gap right here is the next level of interest, 231. And then lastly, DIA. The implied move on the day in DIA is 438 and 444. And then on the week, the implied move that we started the week with, 442 to 452, is above us, and we did close right on the 1 hour 200 moving average yesterday. So DIA had a solid drop this week, and 35 EMA crossed underneath the 30-minute 200 moving average, which does make us bearish on the 30-minute time frame. And it does put us on the 1 hour time frame. I'll flip to the 1 hour in just a second here. We are oversold here, and to the upside, the first level is going to be that 35 EMA. We didn't get above that even for a second this week. So 35 EMA, upper part of the trading range. If we do get above that, then the top of the implied move is at 444. And that would be so wild if we closed between 442 and 444 today. To the downside, we do have the 1 hour 200 moving average. If that breaks, then we've got 438. That would be a pretty big drop to close the week. Let's pull back and see if there's any support. We don't have anything right at that level. So 438 would be that bottom of the implied move. Underneath that, the next support is a little ways away. Actually, this 50-day moving average, which I don't have extended, is probably just underneath there. So flip over to the 1-day time frame and look where that 50-day moving average is. It's going to be pretty close, and that might be a decent target, maybe even into next week. So really fast, let's take a look at the 1-hour time frame because we're sitting right on top of that. So you could see that we do still have a red signal line here, but we are pretty oversold. That 50-day moving average is under here, and go take a look at that on the 1-day time frame. Maybe if you're looking into next week to do in the money calls, that could be a good place to look if you're trying to choose a strike. So a lot to look for today. Have fun, trade safe, make sure you take profits when you're up, and I will see you guys on Sunday night. Have a great weekend.